Hello friends, welcome back. Today we will add some pew pew to our cannons. We will first start by adding them and making sure that they appear in the game. And once they do that, we can start making them hurt the player and also be able to detect the level. And as a reminder, all of the code and assets can be found on my website or on GitHub. If you have questions about this tutorial, or maybe you get stuck somewhere, check out the Discord link. And if you want to go the extra mile to show your support, there is a link below where you can buy me a coffee. Even though I don't drink coffee, I'm a tea guy. In the previous episode, we added our cannons to the game. We started out just like we will start this episode, by adding the images to the game and adding some values to our constant class. Once we got that in the game, we created the cannon class. And as soon as we could display them in the game, we also added a way for the cannon to see the player and only shoot if the player was in front of the cannon. Now, let's tie these two episodes together by adding projectiles for the cannons. Alright, so let us begin by adding the image we're gonna use. And it's gonna be a simple image of a ball, cannonball. So let's go ahead and drag and drop it into our res folder. And just like we do every time we add a new image, is to go to our load and save. And up here, we are going to add a new string. So cannon ball. And it was called ball.png. Alright, we don't need to do much more there. But let's go to our constant class. And we might add more projectiles later, but for now we're only gonna have one. If we do, we might as well make a class for our projectiles here. So public static class projectile, and then a copy of this. Public static int cannon ball default width equal 15, and let's copy that. Cannonball default height is also 15, and then for the normal size, so cannonball, remove that and remove that, then it's recast over to int game.scale times cannonball default width, and it's not default width, it's default height. Copy this, height, and we will also need a public static final float speed equals 0.5 float times game.scale. We might need to change this value later, but at least we will have it, because this will be the speed of the projectile every update. Alright, I think we can create the projectile class now. We will add our projectile in our object class as well. And let's just projectile. Or should we call it cannonball? Now let's call it projectile. And in here we will have a private rectangle 2D float, dot float hitbox. We will have a private int direction. Our cannonballs can only go left or right, so direction will either be to the left or to the right. And then we just multiply this direction with the speed and apply the change to the position of the actual projectile. So that's how we're gonna move it. Do we need anything else up here? We might do, but let's create a constructor. So public projectile, and each projectile will have a int x and int y position where they spawn, and of course int direction, so we know if they're supposed to go to the left or to the right. So for the hitbox, we can just say hitbox is equal to new rectangle 2D.float x, y. We need to import, so we need to import the constants we just made. So import static utils dot constants dot projectiles. Let's grab all of them. And for width, we are going to go with width, or rather cannonball width, cannonball height. Yes. And this dot direction is equal to direction. And this projectile will just have a public void update, but it will only be the position, so we might as well just call it update position. And then hitbox.x plus equals cast over to int. No, not actually. No, we should not. Direction times speed, right? Yeah. And if it's 1, we're gonna either be 1 or -1. If it's 1, then it's going to the right. If it's -1, it's going to the left. But we might wanna reset our projectile at some point, maybe. So public void set position. And then hitbox.x equals x. My bad. We should have an int x and int y here. And hitbox.y equals y. Do we need anything else? Yes, we need a public rectangle 2d.float get hitbox. Return hitbox. So we can check if it hits the player or not. Before we're done with our projectile class, we do need a private boolean active. If it's not active, it's not supposed to be drawn, so we need a active too here. So true is going to be the default, and then we have a public void get, or rather is active, return active, not void, boolean. But we need a public void set active boolean active. This dot active equals active. I think is a good one. Yes. And that's all we need to do right now for our projectile class, I think. We'll see. Maybe we get back here soon. But for now, we are done. So our next step would be to head over to our ObjectManager and add whatever we need to add in order for us to be able to see our cannonballs. And first we're going to need a array list, so private array list projectiles or projectile, and we can call it projectiles equals new array list. And we're not going to use the level because the level doesn't determine how many projectiles we have. Every time the cannon shoots, we add to this array and then we draw and update that array. So we will not use the level at all here. We will just use this array right there. And then we can head over to our load images, and right underneath our cannon images, we can go for our cannonball. So first, maybe we should add a cannon image or a cannonball image. So cannonball image. And now we can head over to our load image method. So cannonball image equals load save dot get sprite atlas load save dot cannonball, like so. And what else? And every time we load a new level or load a start level, we want to clear the current array list of all projectiles. So projectiles.clear. So we wipe this one clean each time we start a new level. And in our update method, we can add right underneath our update cannon, we can say update projectiles. We will need level data and player. But first we just want to see if we can spawn any type of projectiles. But let's just create this method, and then for projectile p projectiles, if p dot is active, p Cannon.updatePosition. And where we have our update cannons, we also have a method called shoot the cannons. We set the animation to true, but we also want to create a new projectile. And that we're going to do by just saying projectiles.add new projectile. c.getHitbox.x and then c.getHitbox.y, and we are going to set the direction depending on what direction it's facing. So we need a int dir equals 1, and that's right. So we check if c.getObjectType is equal to cannon left. If that's the case, we are saying dir equals -1, and then we just pass in direction here. And that should get rid of errors, but we have some errors because these are floats. But we're setting the default direction to 1, meaning to the right. The cannonball is going to the right, but if the cannon is facing to the left, we just shift the direction to -1 and pass the direction in here. So that's how we're going to get the correct direction for our cannonballs. And just to make sure we get rid of the errors, we cast those over to integers. And we're going to come back to this one soon because it's not going to spawn correctly, but they will spawn though. So we're going to get back in here soon. And then of course we want to draw our projectiles. Just like every other thing. So X level offset, like so. And create that method. For projectile P, projectiles, if P dot is active, G dot draw image, cannonball image, yes, P dot get hitbox dot X plus X, no, minus X level offset, but this needs to be recast over to a integer. So we can do that right away. Cast that over to an integer. P.getHitbox.y. For width, we are going to have P. Cannon ball width. We need to import that constant. So let's head over to the top. And right underneath here, import static utils dot constants dot projectiles dot, let's take all of it. Now we can head back to this cannonball width, cannonball height, and I think that's good enough. Anything else? No. And we don't need any really reset because we have the reset here. Let's give it a try and see if it starts. Fingers crossed. No errors. And we had a cannonball shooting. Nice. And it's not shooting or spawning anything if the player is behind. But in front, yes. And in front, yeah. Beautiful. There is some offset that needs to be fixed that we're gonna deal with in a second, and it's shooting as soon as it sees the player and not on the correct sprite. That's also something we need to deal with. But yeah, the rough idea is working. Great. Now we should probably address the spawn position of the cannonball first, and depending on what direction the cannon is facing, we need different spawning points for the cannonball, so it looks like it's coming out of the cannon. And we need to move the cannonball spawn position down a little bit. They will be the same for both left and right. But for X, we're gonna have a little bit different. And I already tried it out and have it on my little note here. So if it's facing to the left, or rather first, where do we set it here? First, let's check whether or not direction is equal to 1. If it's facing to the left, then we're gonna do it one way. And if it's, well, facing to the right, we're gonna do the other way. So we need a int x offset. And this is gonna be the default for if it's facing to the left. Meaning the cannon facing to the left will be -3 times, well, game.scale. Then we need to throw this over to an integer. Like so. And int y offset will be equal to, well, we need to cast over to int, and then we need to move it down 5 times game.scale. And that offset for y will be the same for both left and right. But if we're facing to the right, instead of going -3, we're going to say, let's see, what do we need to say? Plus 29, so 29 times game.scale. And that would then put us in a good position for the cannonball to spawn, so it looks like it's coming out of the cannon. And then we just plus x offset, and then plus y offset. So if we start it now, let's see if we can manage to see it. But yeah, you can see that it looks like it's spawning in the barrel, and the same applies for that one to the right as well. Perfect. And our second upgrade should probably be that we don't shoot the cannon or spawn a projectile as soon as the cannon sees the player. Let's actually shoot the cannonball at a specific animation index, so it looks like it's loading up and then shooting. It's not shooting right away. So here we will actually take the set animation, remove it or replace it with shoot cannon, and then we can actually remove those. So we set the animation to true, we update the cannon, and if c.getAnimationIndex is equal to 4, I think it was, yes, then we want to say shoot cannon and C. But we can remove this C animation or c.setAnimation to true. If we run this now, we're gonna get a lot of cannonballs every time we can shoot. Like you see, that's a lot of cannonballs. So we need to make sure we only shoot one cannonball. And that's gonna come from the same line here, if the animation index is equal to 4, and c.getAnimationTick, which we don't have, but we're gonna add it, is equal to 0. So let's go to GameObject. Okay, GameObject, where we have getAnimationIndex. Then we just add a public int getAnimationTick. Then return animation, not index, but tick. Like so. And now back to our object manager. So if it's animation 4 and also it's the start of the animation tick or the animation, then we shoot the cannon. So let's give it a try and see how it looks. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And now the last upgrade would be to make sure that the cannonball can hurt the player and also that it can detect the level. So if it goes to a wall or hits a wall, it should despawn and get inactive. So for our update projectiles, we are going to add brackets here. First, we're going to update the position, just like before. Then we check if p.getHitbox.contain intersects player.getHitbox. If that's the case, we're hitting the player. We want to say, we need brackets here first. We can say that player.changeHealth minus 25, they hit hard. And of course p.setActive false, meaning that they hit the player and it shouldn't be active anymore. Else, not else, but else if, is projectile hitting level. So we're gonna pass in the projectile and then the level data. And you might guessed it, this method is going to be inside our help method. And we might as well get it just next here. So public void, no public boolean, public static boolean, my bad. Is projectile hitting level? Adding brackets, and first we have the projectile, I think. Yes, projectile P, and then I'm just gonna copy this. The level data. Return, is it not called is solid? Is solid, projectile.get hitbox.x, and we're gonna take the middle position of the projectile, not the top left, because if we use hitbox.x, we're getting the top left corner of the projectile, which is not what we want. We want actual middle. So p.get hitbox.x plus p.get hitbox.width. So now we're getting top left plus the half of its width. And then we do the same here for y. So p.get hitbox.y plus p.get hitbox.height. Then level data, and we return whatever that is going to be. So if it is hitting the level, maybe I need to import that method too. So up here, let's just copy this, and then is projectile hitting level. So now we have that method. If it is hitting level, we just want to say p.setActive false. We can remove that one and that one. And I think that is good. If it's active, yes, yes. Yeah, let's give this a final try and see how it looks. All right, let's shoot despawn. It looked like it got a little bit too deep inside the wall. Let's try it again. All right, let's give a look at our method here. Is projectile hitting level? Oh, I forgot. Divide by 2. We need to divide it by 2, otherwise we're getting the bottom right corner, which is not correct. We want the middle, so half the width and half the height. Alright, my bad. Alright, let's try it now. Yeah, that looks much better. Of course, we could add all 4 corners, but nah, it's too much testing and collision detection for such a simple object. So, and yeah, a player can also take damage apparently, because he just died. And if we restart it, yeah, it's looking good. Let's just increase the speed a little bit. So constant class, not 0.5, but 0.75. So let's see the speed now. Yeah, I think that is a much better speed for a cannon. And it looks like it's spitting out a cannonball. Beautiful. Alright, well done my friends. Our cannons work pretty well right now. It's starting to look like a real game. Granted, it's a basic game, but still a game nonetheless. There are more videos to come, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of them. Until then my friend, take care now and have a wonderful day. Bye.